dive right in. I want to start with a little bit of history. Can you tell me
Yeah,
a little bit of the Vergnon family and kind of where things started?
perfect. Hi, Michael. I see the message at the same time. So, uh, just about the history. So, the domain and the name GL Vergnon was created in 1950. Uh, the story is a meeting, a marriage, a wedding between my grandfather and my grandmother. So my grandfather came back to Champagne after the Second World War. And after his wedding with my grandmother, they had some lands. It was a part of agricultural lands and a part of vineyards. So they decided first to learn how to become a wine grower. So they learned with the other members of the family, like uncle, like other growers in the village. And first they worked with a cooperative of Le Mesnil. After
So
few,
can I just want to go back to the very beginning. So in 1950,
yeah,
your grandfather, um, he married your grandmother, um,
yes,
and she was, if I remember correctly, she's from Le Mesnil. Is that correct?
yes,
And that's where the vineyards came from her family originally.
yeah. The biggest part of the lands and vineyard is from my grandmother from Le Mesnil. So this is why today we will see the majority of the plots are located in Le Mesnil.
Perfect. Perfect.
So based in Le Mesnil, all the facilities were in Le Mesnil and are still in Le Mesnil today. So as I said, first they learned and then they decided to work with a cooperative. It was easier to transplant agricultural lands into vineyards and work first with the facilities of the cooperative. So during something like 20 years, they were like cooperator, and then in the 70s they decided to make their own wines, champagne and coteaux champenois. So
So that was the beginning of the first domain bottlings was in the 70s.
in the 70s, yes.
And so the first two, there was a Coteau Champenois back then also.
Yeah, my grandfather made some coteaux champenois, and last year I found all the old labels, so from the 70s until today.
That's great.
So, and as we still have old bottles, we'll make some, we'll try to label the old bottles with the old label. So for your next trip to Champagne, the bottles will be ready.
All right. Well, that's something to be excited about. So the 70s start doing some domain bottling.
Yeah.
What's the next kind of the next steps?
The next step was something like 10 years after. In the 70s, it was really the creation of Domaine First Wine, trying to improve themselves into winemakers. So they made wines, they made tests, and in the 80s, they decided to build another building in the village to get their own space with tank, with barrels, with a big cellar, and with an old wine press, still the same as today. So in the 80s, my grandfather really became GL Vergnon as a wine grower. He left the cooperative and really made his own wines, own champagne, and created his own style.
So what was the philosophy back then? Because I think it's kind of, as I remember, Christophe, yourself, and your father have described it to me. It was kind of unique the way he kind of thought about making champagne back then, at least the concept that he was working towards?
He was a guy who loves to try new things. As you know, today we are using low dosage, but before we don't do chaptalization and we stop the malolactic fermentation. And he did the same in the early 80s. So his first vintage were without malolactic fermentation. So he quickly stopped malo fermentation for his vintage. He kept it for the non-vintage wines, but for the vintage in 81, 82, he stopped the malolactic fermentation.
And what was the inspiration for that? I mean, that wasn't necessarily something that was, you know, was that a trend? That what was the background for that?
He discovered some wines without malo fermentation, and he was thinking to the future. He discovered the thing that if you stop the malolactic fermentation, you keep the freshness, you keep the acidity, and you can keep your wine younger and longer. So he started with the vintage to be able to keep them longer in the time.
So in the 80s, he's got this idea to do lower dosage, to do to no malolactic, and so when does you know, when's the next kind of, at that point they've got how many hectares total at that point?
At that point they were between 4 to 5 because for example in the 50s, my grandparents received a new plot as a wedding gift. So it was 4.2 hectares. A few years after, we had another plot in Avis. And at the end of the 90s, we were at 5.3 hectares, close to 5.3, close to today.
And when did your father start working with the property? What was his, you know, his beginnings with your grandfather?
So my grandfather died early, so in 1989. So he only worked a few years in his new building, his new facilities. So between 89 to 99, my grandmother was the big boss. So she was leading the domain as a man at this time. So she managed the staff. My uncle was working with her as a cellar master because he studied the winemaking. And in 1999, she was 71. And my father said, okay, you can stop to work now. You did the job, and it's time for you to stop. So I will be back in Champagne to manage the business. So I'm there.
So your your grandmother, I mean, that's kind of extraordinary. Your grandmother, you know, after the death of your grandfather in 89, she was, if I did the math correct, she was 62, and
yeah.
And she took over, basically, she was managing the property.
Yeah. She said, we need to continue.
Wow.
So, and if we want to continue, I need to manage the domain. She wasn't a winemaker. She wasn't she worked in the vineyards every day. She can do everything. She was able to do everything from the vineyard to the cellar. But before with my grandfather, she was the administrative part, the commercial part was my grandmother. But in 89, she said, okay, now I need to be able to do everything alone with my sons. And she did that.
I know your grandmother is still with us today. I know you were asking her questions a couple of weeks ago. I had a question about something, and you said, "Let me ask my grandmother."
Yeah, she's she's the history of the domain.
That's amazing.
She's 94, 92 today.
That's
So
amazing. Cheers to
yeah, and she's still
your
strong.
grandmother. That's great. That's great. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I mean, I think that's such a beautiful story. It's such a great,
It's very important for me, for the domain, and for the family, because when I met her so few weeks and few days ago, so I asked a few questions about the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s to understand the evolution of the vineyard, of the different harvests. And I found a paper, a small book, a blue book, where she wrote everything every year. So the harvests, the dates, the quantities, how many workers were eating every day, the salaries. So everything is in this book since the 70s.
That's an amazing historical document. That's she must
Yeah,
be very proud of you.
I hope so. I never asked, but I hope so.
So let's get back. So your father comes in and gives your grandmother a break, and so that
Yeah.
she can doesn't have to carry all the weight. So what are the steps that your father Didier took next? And unfortunately, I know he's away today, but looks like he just joined.
Yeah, he just joined. If she
Salut
talk about
Didier.
him, he's here. So when he joined the business in '99, he's a businessman first. So before he managed some companies, but he was a guy from the vineyard, from Le Mesnil. He is born in Le Mesnil. So in '99, he said, "Okay, we'll need to think and look at the future. So we need to find a guy to work with us as a cellar master." So a year after, Christophe joined us, and they really
Christophe Constant.
yeah, exactly. So they decided together to, and still with my grandmother also, she is always close to the business, and they decided to continue in the same way. So new guys, but in the same way, and try to continue the legacy. So in the vineyard, in the cellar, to keep the same philosophy. So my father is still working with me today. Now he is the big boss, and it's good to continue with as a family business. So grandfather, grandmother, uncle, now my father, now in the business. So it's really important for us.
And and since you've come on in 17,
Yeah.
Christophe is no longer their full time, but Christophe is still part of the team. He's a consultant and still works with the family.
Yeah, when I was back in 17, we worked few months together with Christophe. So I know him since many years, because when he joined the business, I was 11, and so I met him a few times before. But in 17, when I arrived, Christophe was still there. So we worked together a few months, and now is still not every day there, but for example, he was there today as a consultant. So it's for us, it's a good link between today to 2020 and the beginning of 2001 when he joined. So it's important to keep the link to understand everything. He knows the domain, the vineyard. He made the wine for 15 years. So it's it's important to keep this link and to understand. It doesn't mean we can't do new things. We are continuing to imagine new things, but we need to keep the base.
So, so let's talk about so that period of time. You came in 2017, and let's talk about your background a little bit. So, you came in, one of your good friends for unfortunately for different reasons came back to his domain, Guillaume Doyard, also in 2017, joined his father after the tragic death of Charles. You came in the same time. You guys are similar age too, frankly.
Yeah, yes, I'm 31. I think he's 32 or 33.
Is that a dig? Are you giving him a little bit of an elbow there? Or?
Yeah,
he's all.
No, but it's. I think it's something good for both. We met a few months before we joined the business. And we met first in Paris for a dinner at the Louis Vin with West Team, if I remember well. And so I met Guillaume or his father for the first time at this dinner. And his domain is only 5 kilometers far from Le Mesnil. So the story is a little bit similar, not for the same reason, but it's a good link between us. The philosophy are the same, I think, between the both domain. We are taking care of the land of the vineyard. We are trying to do good things in the winery. So it's really a good guy and a good family.
No, it's and I mean, yeah, you have a lot of, both have a lot of great Chardonnay, and
Yeah.
so it's I think it's and you have fun together too, if I've understood correctly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, it's
so you come on in 2017, and your background. Can you explain kind of what you did? Because your father and Christophe were kind of running the property. You had a whole nother career in business.
yeah. For the last 10 years, I manage sporting events in different countries in different sports. Most of the time, rugby, but also soccer. And so I was working on a field, not in a vineyard, but I was a manager, so like a business manager for international federation in different sports.
And so in 17, you came back. Was if I understood correctly, your father really wanted some. I think if I understood correctly, he wanted some you to come back and basically bring some of that business, but also become part of the family business. He wanted maybe to not retire, because I know your father, but at the same time he wanted to share a little bit that. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, he called me. I remember this call, and I will remember this call all my life, I'm sure. I was working in Lyon in France, and he called me and asked me if I want to join the business, because it was time for him to get some little retirement and to think about the future. What will be the next generation, and the family, my grandfather and him and his sister wanted a family member to manage the domain after my father. So my sister is not working in the wine industry. She has his own business in the Southwest. And she said, so it wasn't the question. So he called me and asked me, do you want to come? So first I say no. And 3 days after, I called him back and said, okay, I'm coming.
And so you came and you dove right in, because I remember pretty vividly you were immediately thrown into the fire pretty quickly.
Yeah, a few days after my arrival, it's in 17, it was the harvest. So 3 days after, we were harvesting. So quickly in the business, and it was perfect because I didn't get time to think about the did I make the good choice or not. I was harvesting and learning quickly, so it was really good. It was intense, but good.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I remember that. I mean, obviously, it's a big transition to come in, and I knew, I knew a little bit of the whole history and the story, but you were natural from the beginning. It was clear that you brought an energy, and we can talk about some of the things that you and I have discussed over the years, some of the business changes that you've made. I think about the labels, number one, where
Yeah.
I gave you some great advice that you didn't listen
Yeah.
to. But truthfully, you really took to it immediately. It was something that you very quickly, it seemed like you were part of it, and you were fully engaged. It wasn't something where you were just going to come in and on the weekends and you really took it very seriously and seemed to enjoy it, frankly.
Yeah, but it was the objective because for me, as I didn't get the background as other growers or winemakers, the only way to learn quickly was to be there every day to do everything, to be there the weekend, to be open. For a year, I opened the domain for tourists or for visitors every day, and it was really perfect to learn. And
Exactly.
for me, it was the best way.
No, and that's what you have to do. You have to dive in. We could talk a lot longer about a lot of different things, and I think we'll talk a little bit about farming and some of the things that Christophe and your father did to set things up for today. But why don't we do that while we taste through some of the wines, because we've got a lot of wines that we're going to taste through, and I think it'll be a good way to discuss some of the
Yeah,
vinification, the philosophy of the family. And so the first wine that I think we have is the Brut Nature, the Premier
Murmure.
Cru.
Perfect.
So do you want to give us a little bit of background of this wine, which is kind of the entry level wine, but and I have to admit that I tasted all of these last night. I've got them here again, and the 16 of this is extraordinary. It's the best. I think it's the best one that I can remember, frankly, for many different reasons. But let's talk about where it comes from and the philosophy behind this wine.
Yeah. So Murmure is quite simple. Finally, it's something simple, as you said, because we wanted something young, fresh, and to make it, it was easy because we have 2 plots of Premier Cru. On the total, we've got 20 plots, 18 are in Grand Cru, and 2 in Premier Cru. Hi, Christophe.
Bonjour, Christophe.
So the choice was easy. So we used 2 plots. One in Vertus, Les Gaumes. So this one will be 50% of the cuvée, and the second one, La Grande Montmartin, located in the village of Villeneuve, the other part. And 50% will be vinified in oak barrels of 400 liters, 50% in tank. After a normal vinification for the domain, so around 10 to 11 months, without malolactic fermentation, we don't need to chaptalize because as we harvest a little bit later every year, the rate of sugar is enough. We don't need to chaptalize. So the vinification will be for 10, 11 months, and then we bottle. We don't want to keep this wine too long in the cellar before the disgorgement, to keep this freshness, something young, to keep the good acidity, and it's a balance between something sharp with citrus and something fresh, easy to drink. We didn't want to make something too strong, too round. We are looking for something clean, precise, and zero dosage, finally, because this kind of wine, of champagne, it's ripe enough at the beginning. The vinification helps to keep this freshness and the fruity taste. And so no dosage, that's perfect.
I just think that there's an amazing balance and texture to this particular bottling that is gorgeous. And I love the fact that it's kind of really light and vibrant. As you've put it, it's a wine that's great, you know, for all kinds of occasions. You can drink a little bit more than you probably should, and it's okay. It's a really beautiful kind of entry level for your lineup and for the style of wine that you guys have become known for.
Yeah, it's something fresh and easy to drink. It's not too strong, you know. You can drink 1 bottle, 2 bottles. It's sometimes never enough. So if it's fresh, that's perfect.
Yeah, the only problem we've had is keeping it in stock, because this is a wine that unfortunately I know we talk about it often, is can we get some more?
It's the same problem at the Domaine. It's probably the entry level, but it's the highest demand since 3 years.
Yeah, no.
And we are really limited because it's only 2 small plots, and so we can't produce 10,000 bottles of this kind of wine. So it's really limited.
Super. Well, no, it's outstanding. It achieves all of the things that you just explained, the goals of this wine, and it delivers every single time. And I think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
The next one we have is the Conversation, and I mean, this is probably one of the, you know, this is certainly one of the most visible wines of the property, and I love talking about this wine for many reasons. I think I mean, it is an entry level in the same way that the Murmure is, but it is at the same time. I mean, as the Grand Cru level, this wine delivers so much as far as the complexity and the character. It's really kind of an extraordinary value, in my opinion, and it's Grand Cru, which I think a lot of people don't even take that into account, but it's 100% Grand Cru. Can you give us the story here with the Conversation?
So Conversation, so as you say, it's a non-vintage and our entry level for the rest of the range. For me, it's probably the champagne of the range, the most easy to drink for a few things. So it's a Grand Cru champagne. Most of the plots, something like 90% are from the Ménil, and the rest are from Auger and Davies. So actually the base is 2014 with old vines. As for all the vineyard, you are looking for ripeness and good acidity for the harvest. It's the base and the most important for all the champagne at the Domaine. And for Conversation, with this blend of Harvest 14 plus reserved wine, we are looking to make something round, easy to drink, good for aperitif, and it helps to understand the philosophy of the Domaine. a dosage of 5 grams. It's not too high, it's not too low, but at the Domaine it's the highest dosage for champagne, but it's enough. And it helps.
The highest dosage that you do at the Domaine.
Yeah. And this dosage, so it's enough. With this wine, you can start to learn, for me, how we make champagne and how we make our own champagne in small domain. So it's something round, well balanced, but it's from Le Ménil. So you still have something sharp. You still feel the minerality from the soil, from the terroir. So it's a good entry level to understand the rest of the range and the domain.
So it's the 14 base. You've got 80% of 14. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then 20% reserve, and no malolactic like the entire range.
For all the range, no malo, no chaptalization. And
the élevage.
So we've got for the base 2014, it's only in tank, stainless steel tank. So we blend during the harvest. We make the first blend of different plots from the Ménil, Auger, and Davis. And for the reserve wine, during a year, so during 10 months, it will be in tank. But during the summer, the reserve wine will be in barrels. So you've got a small part of oak in this wine.
And that's barrels that are older in general, 400 liters.
So it's 300 liters, and it's a blend of many years. The oldest one is something like less than 20 years old, from 2002 or 2004, and the youngest one is from 2018.
So I love the play between, you've got that salinity, there's some minerality, there's also just some layered texture to it, but it's very fresh, but at the same time has some density to it. It's beautiful. The balance is perfect.
Yeah, this wine, when you taste conversation, you can feel the different step of vinification, the different terroir. The minerality is from Le Ménil. You've got something a little bit strong. It's because of the ripeness, because of the oak, because of the dosage. So it's like, in French, a millefeuille of many
layers of pastry.
Yeah.
Of very fine. It's beautiful. No, I feel like this is one of these underrated stars of that category, because it really it delivers so much for the money. You do have that Ménil, that structure and minerality to it, and then a little bit of the Auger. You've got still some roundness that comes in there too. And the 5 grams just perfectly puts it in just the right spot, but with great freshness at the same time. So that's superb. This bottling is great. So then we're going to have the I don't know, do we call it the cousin of the conversation? The
little sister.
So
Eloquence. So
Eloquence, talk about this.
So it's quite easy. Eloquence, it's exactly the same bottle until the disgorgement than conversation, but we just change the dosage. We change it, but we add a lower dosage. It's not 5 as conversation, it's only 3. So it's on the paper, it's a small difference, but finally, it's a big one when you taste it. Lower dosage means you will feel more the terroir, the philosophy. So you can't erase the taste from the soil, from the berries. You just keep the feeling of for this one of a chalky place. So the minerality, something a little bit salty on the tongue. This is Eloquence, something sharp because you are in the middle.
It's fairly remarkable, and I know that a lot of people who do test and or people that don't might not realize, but that tiny difference is amazing. I mean, it's pretty remarkable because your description is spot on. You've got this. There's no question that you've got this saltiness. This there's a sea spray in the nose almost, and then you definitely finish on that minerality that is much more present than in the conversation.
Yeah.
It exposes that in such an extraordinary way with just that little tweak to the dosage. It's a very interesting experience to taste them side by side, as I'm sure you've done many times, and it's fun. It's fun to do it.
Yeah, because you can't see it in the bottle. You can't see the difference of 2 grams. But when you taste it, if you make a blind tasting, you will feel the difference. Something round and easy to drink with conversation, and something sharp, longer in mouth with Eloquence. So it's, for me, you can drink both of them for aperitif, but you can also pair Eloquence with seafood because the minerality and salty taste is very good with oysters, for example.
Do you remember the first, and I don't know that I've asked this question, or I don't remember the first time that was these bottlings were done? What was have you ever asked Christophe about, or your father, about when these cuvées were created?
No, the real first one, I don't know with this name, because if you go back in the 80s, when my grandfather made his first non-vintage wine, he was using something similar. So a blend of different plots from Le Ménil, from Auger and Davies, and a lower dosage than usual in the 80s. Something around 6-7 grams per liter, and it was probably the beginning of this cuvée. And Christophe after reduced the dosage with a later harvest and made really the difference between 5 grams for conversation and 3 grams for Eloquence.
It's fun to taste them side by side, which I have to say I don't do this specific tasting a lot, but typically we won't have the entire range out like this, so it's very interesting to do it side by side, particularly over a couple of days, and the definitive kind of that salty finish is really kind of the signature that I'm still tasting it right now. So let's talk about the Rosemotion. Rosemotion, which again, I was really struck tasting this last night because I love this current blend. I think there's an extra lift to it. So can you give us a little?
Yeah, so Rosemotion, so it's a blend, and to make it, we will use 92% of Chardonnay and only 8% of Pinot Noir. So we don't have Pinot Noir in the vineyard, so we make a kind of exchange, and we add 8% of Pinot Noir from the village of Mailly, which is also a Grand Cru village. So Rosemotion is still Grand Cru Champagne. So 92% of Chardonnay to keep the base of the domain. So we are specialized in Chardonnay, so we want to keep something fresh and straight. this is the objective with the Chardonnay. And the Pinot Noir, we add something more soft, more small taste of red fruits. So, as I told you yesterday, it's not something so girly, so marketing, because it's not really pink. We don't work on the color. It's something more salmon, but the color is just the blend of 92% of Chardonnay and 8 of Pinot. The Chardonnay is the same as Conversation Eloquence. We just add 8% of Pinot Noir, of red wine, to add this fruity taste. When you smell it, you will feel more fruity than Eloquence, for example, because it's the same dosage of 3 grams.
It's got a beautiful kind of texture to it. I feel it's that it's lighter and more kind of lifted than some previous releases. I feel there's a kind of a vibrancy and a kind of vivacity to it that I really like. There's a beautiful kind of freshness to it. There's definitely a little bit of saltiness to it. There's some of that minerality that comes through too. And I love the color, actually. The color is perfect. I feel like it may have been darker in some previous vintages. Is that just my recollection, or? It's,
as we don't work on the color, it can change a little bit, but it's really the color is the result of the balance between 92 of Chardonnay and 8 of Pinot.
Yeah, no, I'm just in my memory bank. But I think it's a beautiful blend. It's really again, it's something that I have to say, unfortunately with the pandemic and us not having, we don't have our office, we haven't been doing the tastings that you've been to so frequently, and traveling as much, we're not tasting as many things as we typically would at the office with clients in the market. So unfortunately, I don't get to taste as frequently some of the things that I would get to taste. And so this is one of the things that I definitely have not tasted a lot of lately. And it was really fun to taste it last night. So outstanding.
It's still fresh. That's really important for our rosé. We didn't want to make something very different of the rest of the range. We want a rosé, but close to the range. So to keep the freshness and, as you said, something salty, because it's also from the Côte des Blancs.
Yeah, well, exactly. I was going to say the base is the same, and you can feel that in the wine. And I mean, again, it's 100% Grand Cru too, which I think is also, I don't think we underline that enough. I'm talking about even us when we're selling it, because the whole lineup is 100% Grand Cru, and it's pretty, I think that sometimes gets lost. And that base, you can taste that base in the density, the texture, the old vines, and it's gorgeous. So now I want to open up a wine that last night just blew my mind when I tasted it again, and you know how much I love this when we tasted it for the first time together in the cellar. This is the 2010 MSNL, which is just singing at the moment. And can you talk about this and talk about this label that I think I told you this was the perfect label when you showed it to me.
You were the first one to love these new labels, so
I appreciate that. But let's talk about this, because I think this is a very special special bottle.
So MSNL, to understand the bottle first, before was the cuvée named Résonance. So during 11 years, the cuvée was Résonance, but in 19, we decided to change the labels and the name. And I was looking for a new name for Résonance, and it was really hard. And the morning I was in the winery in front of a tank of Résonance, but a few months before, I just wrote on the tank the 4 letters MSNL, which means Menil. So we said, okay, we'll use the same name as the tank, so MSNL. And most of the people know the name of the village, so it's easy to read Menil. And we also add the name of the two lieux-dits, where the grapes are from. So the biggest part is from Les Chetillons. And we also have a small plot named Mussettes, which is just the neighbor of Les Chetillons. I'll just test it with you. So to make this vintage, this cuvée, we have selected few plots, and Les Chetillons and Mussettes they are located really in the heart of the village, in probably the most chalky place of the village. In some areas, you've got only a few centimeters of clay, and then quickly you discover the chalk. So chalky place.
I remember going into those vineyards, and it's a great place to show people, because you can't, if you look just at a glance, you don't see the chalk, but it just takes a little bit of pulling up some of the dirt, and it's right there. The limestone, yeah. So
chalky place, also old vines, more than 50 years old. And the beginning of this cuvée is really the vineyard. So there's old vines with a small taste of bitterness in the berries first, but you need to wait also the harvest to have the ripeness and keep the good acidity to make this wine. It's really the champagne who needs to take his time. It's really long to make it. As you see, it's vintage 10, because too early it's not good. Too early it's close, it's complex because of the vines, because of the soil. So only Chardonnay also, and vinification in tank for 11 months. Then we bottle, and we will wait for 84 months in the cellar before the disgorgement. So that's long. You can't count every day, but it's really hard. It's champagne. You need to wait. And the dosage of 3 grams. We need a small dosage because it's something really sharp. So we are in the heart of Le Mesnil, in the heart of a chalky village. The minerality is there, so we will find sharpness, something complex with a small bitterness, but first sharp.
I feel this has this amazing kind of density to it. There's a really kind of a laser kind of mineral salty core. But there's also, you called it bitterness. I think there's almost kind of a licoricey quality to it too. This hint of that. It's got this amazing finish that just seems to go on forever. But there's a structure to this wine too.
Yeah, the aging helps a lot. In the bottle from 2010, you've got 2 things. You've got the soil, the vinification in tank to keep something clean without malolactic fermentation to keep something fresh and young, but also 84 months in the bottle helps to develop a structure, something a bit more vinous, complex, more full body than a wine after only 5 years of vinification in bottle.
It's really outstanding. And we haven't really talked about the farming, but this is a great place to walk the vineyards and see where, you know, you're leaving the grass between the rows,
Yeah.
managing that, and working towards. I mean, it's been how many years since the property has used any chemicals and herbicides? I know you use organic,
In 16 years now.
and this vineyard is just I mean, it's beautiful to walk in. It's a beautiful spot, actually, kind of right in the center. You look up towards the slope from there. We're fortunate. I know you're out. You told me, because we tried to see if we could get some more, but we've got a little bit left here, which we'll see how long it lasts with the
You are
holidays.
lucky, yeah.
So I think we have one wine left that unfortunately we're out of completely, but you're going to give us the preview of the next release. Do you want to pull it out? I don't have it to.
Yeah, I'm the only one.
Taste.
So
Yeah, exactly. So you're
easy.
this is a wine that I love too. This is you know, really kind of a special wine.
Yeah, so Hautes Mottes, so Hautes Mottes for the history before was Confidence. Until vintage 10, it was Confidence, and we changed in 11. So Hautes Mottes, the name is quite simple. It's the name of a lieu-dit. Because to make this cuvée, we will use 2 plots, a single lieu-dit, Hautes Mottes 1 and 2, looking for ripeness in a different terroir than MSNL. There is more clay, more richness in this area, more in the valley of the village. And we are looking for really something ripe, and then the vinification will be only in oak. So we've got many oak at the Domaine, and during 11 months we will keep these 2 plots in oak. So the same, no malolactic fermentation, still no chaptalization. And after the bottling, 72 months, 72 months, yeah.
72 months.
72 months, yeah. Vinification in bottle before the disgorgement. And then no dosage.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Because all this work from the harvest until the disgorgement and dosage is made around the richness from the beginning. The grapes, in the grapes, you've got this richness, the sweetness. You add a work with oak, with a barrel, and then no dosage because it's enough.
What's the oak that you use? Could you just explain the oak that it's aged in?
So we only use 300 liters oak barrels and different brands, different vintage from 2004 to 2018, a little bit the same than Conversation. But to make Hautes Mottes, we will select every year between 6 to 8 oaks. So few weeks or 1 month before the bottling, we will make many tests. We'll try many combinations of all the barrels to decide which 6 or 8 of them will be used for the cuvée.
So basically, it's a selection of the best of those 2, Hautes Mottes 1 and 2. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
So it's about 1/3. You keep about what, 6, 7 of 20 or something? Is that right?
We'll keep 1/3, yes.
And then the rest of it goes into
Conversation, Eloquence. So in this bottle, you've got a small part of oak, but it's small compared to the still parts in Conversation and Eloquence. So
the bottling that you're teasing us with here, that will be released in the beginning of the year, is 2012. 2012. Can you talk about the vintage and give us a little preview of what to look forward to? So we are just tasting the new bottles. So
one thing important also about all the range is for the non-vintage wine, after the disgorgement, we'll keep them a few months, 6 months, before any release. For the vintage, we need to keep them around a year before any shipments, any sale. So, for example, this bottle has been disgorged in November 19. So close to 1 year ago. And in 12, the vintage was also special and difficult. You've got freeze in the winter and then freeze in spring. The rain, the hail, and after a difficult spring, a very dry and warm summer. So the summer was late. It was really warm in the middle of July. So we have been waiting for the last growth, the ripeness, a bit longer than other vintage. And finally, because of all these difficulties, the yields were low. So low yields, but good quality, good richness at the end.
So a lot of concentration. It's going to be a...
Yeah, as we lost a lot of buds and berries, the concentration was better. So we are looking, really looking for something rich in this vintage. So, which is perfect for Hautes Mottes. The richness was there at the beginning.
And that will balance off with the Ménil, the style of the village.
Yeah, because you keep you are in Le Ménil, so you have the signature of Le Ménil in all the wines, and so you really blend the richness from the vintage and from the plots with a philosophy, with the typicity of Le Ménil. So you always keep the chalky village in your mind, and you have the richness and the oak taste on that for this cuvée. So cheers, because I'm alone for this vintage.
Well, here you can tell. Give us a little.
I can try.
Yeah.
So yeah, released good, released in a few months.
So the style, how's it showing? Is it?
So that's always surprising to taste Hautes Mottes just after MSNL, because MSNL, you've got something sharp, but you really feel the salinity, the salty taste, and after Hautes Mottes, it's the richness. You've got, you feel the vinification in oak, which is not really normal for the rest of the range. But there is only oak, so when you smell it, when you drink it, first you feel the oak. It's really good. For me, this vinification today is similar to a Burgundy style. The richness, the ripe Chardonnay, vinification in oak, and nothing more. So only the ripeness and the richness from the berries, oak, and that's it. So it's
good texture. I'm assuming basically.
Yeah, something really smooth. So as for the other wines, you don't have too much bubbles. We don't have big bubbles. Something really creamy, and that's better for this kind of wine, kind of champagne. It's more gastronomic, and so it's a pleasure with this kind of a small bubble.
Great. Clément, it's been a pleasure to spend a moment with you.
Thank you.
I hope I'll be able to get over again soon. And I know all your friends in the States are looking forward to seeing you soon. You were one of the last of the folks to leave. I know you were in California.
We were
very
three, we were the last three growers in California last in March. So,
yeah,
but it was cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, say hi to your father. Say hi to
It's a pleasure.
Christophe, and thank you so much for walking us through the property, the history. It was a treat.
You're welcome. Thank you for hosting that, and see you soon, I hope.
I hope so too. Take care,
Yeah.
Clément.
Thank you. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you, David. Cheers.
Cheers.